Welcome, everyone. We will be starting in about 1 minute. Hey, Travis, it's been about a year. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you, John. It's good. I was thinking my profile picture is, I was thinking maybe I was wearing the same shirt, but I'm not. I could. Somebody's going to come up with you should be able to like record a video of yourself pretending to be paying attention and then make that your profile photo so you can.
That would be a lot. It's kind of like when you leave your voice message, right? Like you say, you pause and you're like, hello.
Yeah.
Oh, please leave a message.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could just have like me kind of nodding my head in a loop, right? You could completely multitask and nobody would ever be any the wiser.
But the better thing would be like, Travis, you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a little dangerous, actually, depending on what you're agreeing to, right?
All right. Why don't we get it kicked off here? We know everyone's busy. We have a good turnout. So just so everyone knows, if you want, we will send the slides out after the presentation, but if you go to finalsite.com/software/integration/Blackbaud, you will get a lot of the information we're sharing today out on the website about our integration, how it works, and all of that stuff. Please, if you have questions as we're going through this, feel free to post information and ask questions. And if we have time at the end, we'll do our best to answer what we can. Okay, why don't we get going here? So Travis, give me a quick intro. Where are you right now, by the way?
Right, I'm in New Hampshire. Yep. So I'm from New Hampshire, spent my whole life in New Hampshire, went to Proctor Academy and little time out at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, but started Whipple Hill in 1998. That's John and I go back quite a ways here. Whipple Hill was acquired in 2014 and have been Blackbaud's president, general manager in charge of Blackbaud's K-12 solution ever since. So, and I think, John, this is what, our third or fourth time. This has become an annual tradition, right? Kind of state of the partnership here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Quickly about myself, I was the founder of Finalsite. We're now in 110 countries around the world, and like Travis said, I'm going to call it friends for probably like 15 years. When you're at Whipple Hill, we would actually meet in the middle in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And grab a bite to eat. And I appreciate all the years we've had working together and what we're doing as we go into the future here too. So let's get into it. So this is we call it our 4.0. We're at our partnership level of 4.0. We're about 4 years into this. And the way we look at this, we have Blackbaud's education management product, the fundraising tool, Raiser's Edge, NXT, their financial and tuition management, and then you have our platform, our digital campus platform, website, inbound CMS product. And our goal today is to share how all this connects and works together. So the digital campus, so this is how we look at it from how schools can be super successful going forward. We've actually built out some micro sites that you could plug in. So let's say you don't have Finalsite and you're like, I can't afford to rebuild a website right now, but with COVID, with the virtual enrollment class that's going on and things have changed, you actually can plug this right into your website. So it gives you a quick way to really have all the functionality you need to run admissions virtually. And then online fundraising connecting to Raiser's Edge. We have community relation hubs. You design your own digital campus. So we've just built all these tools to make a school your website more than a website. It's a digital campus, it's a hub, and it connects in live streaming, digital marketing services. So we can help market the school to fill the top of the funnel for the students coming in. All the way through to workflows, social aggregation, and engagement with our app and our functionality. Travis, let's talk a little about data here.
Right.
Maybe share a little color about data, and I'll opine.
Yeah. So I think, and I think what John was just explaining, John, just go back to the last slide for just 1 second. You know, there definitely is always going to be, when you get a company the size of Finalsite with kind of the span of what their platform does, and the size of Blackbaud, the span of what our platform does, you know, there's going to be overlap. There's going to be some things that our products do and their products do. But I mean, what John and I are both committed to, and our companies are committed to, is kind of doing what's right for our customers. And, you know, we want to create platforms that, you know, can use modern APIs and technology to communicate with each other and kind of reduce the friction of running both of our systems. And, you know, in some instances, you know, your school will have to make the right decision about, you know, boy, should we push that email out, you know, through John's tools or through Blackbaud's tools, or should we, does it make more sense for us to use this, you know, the inquiry form or the giving form on the website, or should we use the Razor's Edge form, you know? So we're not necessarily here to always tell you, you know, I mean, John, of course, should say use ours, and I should say use mine, and you'd expect us to say that. But what we're committed to is supporting, you know, a variety of different configurations so that you can make our collective products work, you know, best for your school. And ultimately, now if you'd flip it, John, to the next screen, I mean, the reason that's so important is data quality, right? So, you know, if you're getting an inquiry, or you know, somebody's updating their address or their email, you know, that quality of that data becomes very important. You know, it's very important if you're going to push out a text message and, you know, tell parents that, you know, school's been canceled this morning because of a snowstorm, or, you know, if you're trying to communicate with families in the admission funnel, you know, like, you need high quality data so you can segment it and so you can use it. And, you know, that data, if you're using John's tools to communicate, you know, a lot of times how much money they gave, you know, are their siblings enrolled at the school? You know, a lot of that information lives within your Blackbaud databases. So, you know, we think the integration is the key to the quality. And, you know, without integration, you're either left, you know, double entering or exporting and importing, and, you know, things become disconnected. And, you know, next thing you know, the poor data quality is impacting your communication strategies. So, I mean, the data quality, like, really is at the core of everything we're trying to do. It manifests itself in the connections between our systems, and, you know, whether it's a calendar feed that's coming from, you know, Blackbaud and showing up on a website, or whether it's a profile change that's syncing, you know, you can see how important the data quality is for all these things. Because, you know, if the calendar feed's not connected, they change the calendar here and it doesn't get updated on your website, you know, obviously that leads to a poor experience. So I think that's enough said on data quality, John. That's the key.
Yeah,
Quality of the data.
and I think the benefit of integrating them is to get rid of the pain points. So at the end of the day,
Yep.
like,
Right.
get rid of those things, those auto manual processes, and pull it together. You can keep going here, Travis.
Yeah. Yep. So I think the, you know, essentially that's sort of the point here. And this feeds into the data quality, you know, eliminating double entry, you know, trying to figure out some of the flow chart sort of decisions about, you know, which is the database of record, and, you know, you make the change here and it flows to there. You know, some of this stuff is enabled by technology, but, you know, frankly, a lot of it has to do with decisions you're making within your school about, you know, if somebody calls the, you know, the administrative switchboard and says, hey, you know, we have a new address, which system do you put it in, and where do you go, and how do you update it? So, you know, the technology enables all that stuff, but, you know, ultimately that's this sort of balance between, you know, the Finalsite and Blackbaud system and your school.
Again, same as before though, right? It's the goal is like, how do you make this easier? How do you manage your data, and how do you get it up? So
Yep.
this is how it works. Basically, the data is flowing from Blackbaud system. So it could be their student information system, Razor's Edge. You could have either one. That data, their education management portfolio, that data flows through. It's basically the longest wait you would have for that data to refresh would be 1 hour. So it could be 5 minutes. Max time would be 59 minutes. Everything coming across is secure. This is like one thing I know Travis feels this way and I feel this way. Like data security, privacy is like huge. That data flowing across is in the right format, going through the right pipes in a secure fashion. And also, when you authenticate, we can use Blackbaud's authentication to log into Finalsite and vice versa. So we can make sure that the experience for the parent, the student, faculty member is the best it possibly can be. So maybe here, Travis, you could talk about your enrollment management, your student Razor's Edge. And we have, Travis, we have over 100+ schools that have integrated this system. And I think last year we were about 65. So there's been a lot of movement, and there's I don't know if we have lost any that have tied into both of our systems at this point. So it's working really well and getting better every year. So maybe you can add a little thought in here.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, I'd also say, your team, that, I was on a call the other day with a school, and, we were working through some of the setup and the configuration. I had crossed my desk, and I offered to get involved. And, there's probably no two integrations that are exactly the same, and I think the work you guys do to help set up and support and configure, there's a checklist and a long conversation that has to happen. We're looking at, like we said, we're looking at, things like calendars and schedules. We're looking at athletics schedules. We're looking at directories. You've got just a variety of different things that ultimately could be integrated. And, you have to kind of make, each school is going to be making their own decisions about, do we need to integrate that? Is that relevant for us? If I'm sorry that I did that, John, go back to the other slide for just 1 second, because I started talking about this slide. In the examples, I think there's the general flow of like constituent data, and rosters and schedules and things that tends to go from Blackbaud to Finalsite. But, there's other possible types of integration. You look at something like Razor's Edge, where maybe, there's a part of Razor's Edge called OLX where you could embed a giving form on a Finalsite website, and the pledge and the gift would go into Razor's Edge. That's actually a situation where the integration's flowing a different way. Or you look at, if you're using Blackbaud's enrollment management, we're looking at something where, maybe there's inquiries and they're coming in and they're setting up an application and a candidate. And then maybe your marketing automation is sort of using that information to drive engagement and interaction. And then I know we've been talking about, some of that information needs to find its way back into our system, so that when you look up the candidate, you're able to see if they got the email that was triggered out of your system. So, I think the thing that we're committed to and is not, that we're just going to somehow disappear for a couple months and get this 100% right. I think what we're committed to is kind of that iterative approach of like listening to what customers need and listening to where the most chafe is and where the issues are, and then trying to figure out, how we can bring additional layers of integration online to support the real types of things people are doing. And, that was the call the other day where it was like, hey, we're hearing about a customer who's saying, look, we're publishing athletic schedules. The AD's entering it into the Blackbaud system. It's showing up real time on the Finalsite website, which is, hey, that's great. But, when you listen a little closer, you find out it's not that great, because they actually wanted to like enter all the information and then publish it at one time, not, so sometimes when you're pursuing something like integration, you're thinking, we've got it. It's real time schedule integration. And that was the goal when we were talking about this 2 years ago. But when you actually listen to the person who does the work, they're like, well, yeah, but that's not really what we want. And so now we're trying to figure out, all right, there's some published settings that are on our end that if your team adds to the integration, then maybe we can make it so, that's the process. And it's really about listening. And I don't think we'll ever be 100% done with this. I think we'll just keep trying to commit the resources necessary to inching those, those connections ahead.
Yeah, and Travis, just to echo that, as we have 100+ schools using it. As we keep getting more, the value of it keeps going up, and you keep spending more and more resources on it. But like you said, we have lots of people doing athletic stuff. Most people are happy, but I would say, like you said, we're looking for feedback, right? Like all this stuff, how we can make it better, and that's what this relationship has been year over year.
Right.
What we can add and what we can do.
Yeah.
And
John, one of the points too, the athletics is a good example where, you could certainly go enter athletic schedules into your system. You could enter them into our system. And you could, that's a perfect example of where schools need to figure out what works for them. The reason that information ends up in our system is if you're running our SIS system, you're taking attendance, you're giving the kids a grade for their participation in the sport, you're taking attendance. The schedule is put in there because you're actually taking attendance at the game because it's a boarding school and, you need to keep track of where the kids are. And so that's a reason why, it has to be in our system. If a school's like, look, we don't do any of that, we don't need to do any of that, we just want to publish schedules and we just want to use Finalsite, then, that's where it's easy for them. That's where each school has to make that decision individually. And, I wish it was like one size fits all, because I think sometimes it does get, it gets confusing for people because there's not one answer there. But, hopefully the flexibility we both have and the sort of thought that we put into how we connect these things, makes it work for each school individually.
all right, just to cover this here. So we talked about an hour sync that goes back and forth, like 1 minute to 59 minutes. So we have user authentication, the dynamic groups come over, your directory information comes over. So this could be alumni, student, parents, faculty. Dynamic, the lists come over, and this will give us the ability to automate the workflows that go out. This is the type of data we're pulling over from the system that's syncing up at this point. This right here just gives you an idea. Once it's set up, it should be like, leave it. You don't have to touch it. If something happens, there's an error message that gets sent out, but there's no more duplicate data entry, no more longer trying to figure out where's the data. And the data, like the master database is set on Blackbaud side, whether it's RE or if it's their SIS, that data is where it's fixed. You update there, it comes over to Finalsite and it works. I want to talk a little about marketing automation. So one thing you can see in the marketplace that with automation, it increases engagement by 68%. More timely communication also helps, and it actually increases opportunity. So we are very much focused on how do we get you more donations and how do we get you more and better qualified students applying to your school. So that's all tied back to the marketing side of what we're doing with the automation and what's going on in the space. So we have this product called Messages. Messages is a way to where workflows are created, where you send your emails out. And this message can be used with Enrollment Management System, or NXT. So this data or the SIS and this data will flow out, and then you can push out emails that are created in here that can be personalized, that can link back to your website, so you actually can see what people are clicking on and what they are doing. So from admission inquiry to a fundraising campaign to parent forums, whatever it may be, when we send an email out, or not us, the school, and they push something out, you can have a workflow. We can help you set this up as needed. And when you click on certain links as parents, it triggers other actions. If you click on a website, it triggers other actions, but it takes you through a whole process. It's basically pre-canning emails that are going out, so you don't have to respond to each person. And they're smart, so it actually knows what you want to do next based on what the end user clicked on in their email. So here's just an example. So you could come in here and you can see it over to the right. It's popping up the editor. You could personalize like your first name. So you're building it out here. You could come up with like 5 tips for choices for the right school. So this is kind of a I want to go to this school, or something that's going on. So you can pick some pictures that go in. You can go back and say, all right, what's the subject line? And again, it's just building this out slowly. This could be pre-done and saved. You can clone other ones that have been created, and just build this out slowly with what you want. And again, if you put in the subject line in different areas where you personalize stuff, you get better information that flows out, and your click rate actually goes up. So we have best practices tied to this. So you can automatically add subscribers through the workflow that are coming from Blackbaud's enrollment system. You have goal-based things, so you can get the current status. You can add branches also, which is really cool. And then one thing we're tying into this, and you'll see this come out in June. I think we have about 75 schools signed up for this already, for the beta of it. But we're adding text and voice to this. So you'll be able to send messages. You do the automated emails that go out, but then you'll be able to text or send a voice message. You can push to an app. Also, you can do pushing out social messages. So if you want to put a news article out and you want to push it out to Twitter or LinkedIn, you're just doing it in all pretty much in one interface in the simplest way possible. So now when you communicate, it's in whatever form the parent wants to get it, right? You push it to the website, you send a text, you send a voice message, you send an email, you do a push to the school app, and you push it out to social, all in one interface in the simplest way possible.
And I think the key, is if the key to the integration, you can see where, Finalsite's gone deep on the marketing piece and the marketing automation, deeper than Blackbaud. And, what makes this work is if the parent logged into the Blackbaud portal and updated their phone number or their email, within the hour, that information gets swept to Finalsite, so that when you send the email, and that is not just the email and the phone number, it's also when you get into fundraising, buy bunts, side bunts, and who's given more than a certain amount of money, that type of information can be used to build that workflow logic as well, right? So, I mean, I hate it when, I get the annual fund solicitation and I already gave to the annual fund and I'm calling the school saying, hey, I thought I already gave. Did you guys not get my gift, right? So, with this kind of integration, you can build the query on the Finalsite side to say, give me the people who gave last year but not this year, and only send them the email saying it's not too late to go to the annual fund. So, that's the key where Finalsite's doing its magic and we're doing our magic. And, when you put them together, you actually get something that, gives you a much better ROI.
Yeah, what else is pretty cool? I didn't talk about this earlier, but we have roles, right? So we have like the alumni role, parent, student, faculty. So we can take the alumni role from RE, NXT. So whether it's hosted, it's the old version, we can pull that to our system for that role. And we can do a separate integration into the SIS world. So we can pull from both systems as needed based on what the school needs. I also just want to talk about design. I don't know.
John, let me just park on that for 1 second. I mean, in theory, if you wanted to send out an email to the kids that were on the honor roll, the who made the heads list, that could be a Finalsite email, and it could be personalized, and it could look like a fancy certificate, and you could populate that with data from our SIS system. So it could be the people who are coming up on their reunions. It could be students on the honor roll. It could be families who've inquired, who are alumni or have us checked off an interest, right? So you've got this rich sort of sea of data that really frees up your marketers and your communicators to kind of develop strategies that ultimately leave people with really relevant and timely information that looks good and is automated and doesn't become a real burden on your team to produce.
Yeah, and like I said, Travis, most of our schools that have integrated this system, they have not left it. They haven't left Blackbaud. They haven't left Finalsite. They use this, and it becomes part of their daily routine.
Yep.
And it works. It works really smooth. And like you said earlier, nothing's perfect. We got to keep working on upgrading it. But for the most part, these systems, what we're sharing, are working very well.
And John, some of the connections, some of the paths between our systems, if you're using this and you're like, have some idea for some piece of data that isn't in the feed that would make it more useful to you, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we want to hear about. And, that's becomes the basis for what we're talking about a year from now, right? We want to keep expanding. And ideally, we don't want to waste our time connecting data, that's not interesting to our customers. We want to make sure that the things that we're automating and integrating are actually things people want to use.
Totally. I'm gonna just jump into just a few things that are happening in the marketplace here, and then we're gonna jump back into answer some questions at the end. Google just came out. They did this 4 years ago. They basically said, if your site is not mobile ready or mobile friendly, meaning responsive, that we're going to drop you down in the search engine list. Google just came out and said, based on your design and how it's designed, we're going to drop you down again. So it's something that all schools need to pay attention to. Like, we have the integration stuff, this stuff all pulls together, but we want to make sure when a prospective family comes in that you're high enough on the search engine so they click the inquiry, goes into Blackbaud system, and it flows through into ours so we can communicate. But it's just something to know and pay attention to. And we look at stuff like, if you're let's say a tier 1 independent school, a lot of them are going out and building we call it a BIC, a best in class, that ties all the mobile stuff in, the whole process to their phone, and that makes it real easy for prospective families and whatever to apply, get into Blackbaud system, and roll its way through to Finalsite. But the important fact here is Google is going to start dropping sites that aren't designed in the correct way down on their list. So it's an algorithm thing. All right. I think people heard the news that we acquired SchoolAdmin, which is exciting. And they are a partner with Blackbaud today. So today, if you have Blackbaud and SchoolAdmin, you have the integration, there's a nightly process that runs, and this data flows through to SchoolAdmin, and then SchoolAdmin sends parent demographic data back, student data, and some custom fields back to that. This will continue to work. We'll continue to support this. Both of us, Travis and I, have talked about this for a while. And again, I'm going to go back to what Travis said earlier. Finalsite's this way too. We want our schools to be super successful. You got to pick what works best for your school. And Finalsite is we're very flexible. I'm actually a Swiss German. If you go back on my bloodline, I like the neutrality. But we've really played this role throughout the years. Like, we want to work with as many schools as possible, but we also want to work with what's best for the school and what works. And Travis and I are committed to building this partnership each year. So we both have to play our part being good stewards back and forth. So you have any
Yeah,
thoughts?
and we're, we've got a great relationship with Nate and the school admin team, and, we're big fans of the work they do. And, we recognize, Blackbaud's trying to be that constituent of record, that sort of one database, but, we certainly recognize that there are solutions in the marketplace, bigger companies like Finalsite and school admin, smaller companies that play a role in providing, web-based applications that make our schools run. So, we're most important to us, obviously when you look at something like school admin, there's quite a bit of overlap with that product and, our enrollment management system. But that said, we've got lots of schools that have admission offices that are super successful with that product. So, we are, running fundraising, running tuition management, running student management, and those systems, have to play nice with school admin, just like on the website side, lots of schools out there very successful with Finalsite. If you want a Finalsite website, you want Finalsite marketing automation, we got to play nice there. So, that commitment, we're all crystal clear on that. And I know at times it's awkward because, but it really, we're all committed to giving you choice in the marketplace. And, we need to make sure the integration can hold the pieces together. And, I certainly think this consolidation will help from that perspective because, the fewer companies and the fewer people we have involved, the easier it is. That's where these things get kind of convoluted sometimes when you get too many cooks in the kitchen. So, this is new information. It's a week old and, we don't have a lot other than to say, it's status quo for the time being. But I have no doubt as we roll forward and John, as you guys start to do the next level of integration with school admin and Finalsite, we're going to have to figure out where the Blackbaud connections and bits fit into that equation.
Yeah. And again,
stuff.
It's iterative. We're going to keep building on this, but what's there today will continue to work and support it going forward. And like Travis said, we're going to look at, we do a lot of inbound stuff. There's a lot of stuff that overlaps even here. We're just going to figure out how we can create the best experience for our schools, parents applying, filling the top of the funnel, working them through the process. That's our goal at the end of the day, making sure our schools are as successful as possible.
John, real quick, I'm just noticing a panelist question from earlier that was for me. If I could just address it quickly before we get too far away from it. Is that okay?
Please.
Yeah.
We can jump into questions now, actually. So
okay. It was specifically, I know, John, you guys, you mentioned 100 countries and you're international. Blackbaud certainly has an international footprint. Our school business, though, is really focused on North America. So, the education management products are not worldwide at this point. It's Canada and the US. And, when it comes to RE and RENXT, that product is worldwide. Although, I think somebody was mentioning there is some functionality that, from the NXT stuff that only works in the US. And I know that, some of that functionality that I'm aware of is in sort of the payments area and some other areas. I'm not sure specifically which features are being called out, but just, I know you've got kind of a global audience. I think when it comes to our education management portfolio, unfortunately at this moment, it is restricted to the US and Canada, and part of that, I think having, formerly been Whipple Hill and website, when you get into the student management stuff, there's a lot more sort of in-country requirements, provincial and reporting requirements that I think when you're just kind of doing marketing automation, you've got to comply with certainly the data privacy directive. And, I'm not trying to minimize that, but when you get into SIS systems, you've got, like the ministry reporting for the province of Quebec, so if you try to go global, all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of requirements that go along with that, we haven't been able to make a priority at this point, which is why we've got that restricted. I do think at some point in the future, we know there's companies out there that play in the space globally and do SIS globally. And, someday maybe that'll be where Blackbaud is, but for now, that's really just focused on Canada and the US.
Yeah, but what about NXT though? Like Razor's Edge works, because we have a number of
Yeah.
schools overseas that use
Yep.
Razor's Edge, right?
That's great. And if there are specific things, I know, I don't know that we'll spend a lot of time getting into the details here, but if you, in theory, anything that doesn't work there should. And, we have roadmaps and commitments to address those things. So, I'd be happy. I think my email's in the deck. I'll drop it in here as well. If you have something specific and you want to, email me about it, I'd be happy to get you an answer and find out, when that will be addressed in the NXT world. We also have, Blackbaud has an office in London and Australia, and we have professional, people who are responsible for our international customers working out of those offices. So, in all likelihood, what I'll do is redirect those questions to those folks and make sure they get back to the people with the questions.
So a couple other questions in here. When Google implements the algorithm stuff to sort the website based on design, this is coming in the next 3 months. I think they're in process. They usually slow roll this stuff, but it's in process now. You don't have to read about it through us. You can search on it and read up on it on Google algorithm stuff and what's changing there.
And it's worth noting, I mean, Google is always changing their algorithms, and it's a game of cat and mouse from, the SEO folks and marketers are always trying to crack the code. And once they crack it, Google tries to change the code because, they don't want it to be manipulated by people who are marketing. So this is not a new thing. I mean, I know what you're talking about, John, with regards to the latest efforts on their part, but they've really been doing this forever in terms of, trying to stay ahead of this.
Yeah, but they did mobile first, right?
Yeah.
They did the mobile stuff.
Yep.
And then everyone addressed it over a year and a half. Now they're pushing again. And it's just so I think it's their way to like keep the internet moving forward in a while.
Yeah.
This isn't focused on schools. This is like all websites out there in a lot.
And they've done stuff historically about, how big, the load time or, what you've got in your title tag or right. It's like, there's always been sort of an evolution of this. And, this is the latest version of that.
Right.
Yep.
There's another question about Finalsite portal going into Blackbaud. Absolutely. You can log into the Finalsite portal and then into Blackbaud's environment also.
Which would be like the single sign-on path. So, and that is some schools, they log into Finalsite and there's sort of a channel within the Finalsite portal and they single sign on into Blackbaud. Other schools, the login leads to Blackbaud and they, they're not using the portal maybe for the students or the parents. So that's another question where, you need to kind of look at how your school uses the two systems and make some decisions. It is worth noting that when you look at our two portals, you quickly get to things like directories and calendars. And, it's not a good experience to have some of those things turned on in both places. So, it's one thing if you're going to single sign on into our SIS portal to look at a report card, or maybe get an assignment. But if you're using the directory in both places or using a calendar in both places, that could be confusing. So you need to kind of look at the flow that works for you and, ideally disable certain things or, hide and show things on the respective portals to make sure that you're not kind of spinning your parents in circles, right?
Yeah, and that's all, Travis. It's like we take schools through like what's that workflow. So when they log in, what do they see here? What do they get there? And make sure it makes sense. A lot of times we try to do all the communication stuff.
Yep.
Like all the forms, all the stuff you need to download, calendar stuff. You pop that all in, and then you click on absolutes, like what you want to get into. Like we wouldn't touch like the attendance and all that.
And if that's the way it's configured, then there's things, like there's things in our portal that you need to hide, so that, they're not seeing it in yours and then logging in and seeing it again, right?
Right.
Kind of makes sense. Most people are, but that's one of the big decision points, is sort of like, because you don't want to give them two places to log in. So, either they're going to log in here and flow to here, or log in here and flow to there. And you got to kind of look at the flow and make sure that it is supported by the data and the communication strategy.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. I'm just going to go back to this last slide here. I think it's pretty helpful. So you have, like, this would be a good layout. You have faculty, students, parents, alum, prospective employees, and prospective families. And these are the tools that the website you use on your website. And with inbound marketing, we're doing personalization, workflows, and different tests. You can see the results of what's going into the workflows. And then you have your portals, your parent, student, faculty portals. And then this is where the data is coming from. It's coming from Blackbaud system, but you can single sign on into this. And then Finalsite has 40 plus web applications with SSOs in it. So when you log into our portals, you can just single sign on into these other applications. And then from the inbound marketing piece, when your enrollment management system, when it gets over to our eyes, it trigger the workflows, as we said before. But this is kind of a good roadmap. And this is how we're filling the top of the funnel with, we got a marketing team that will help make sure your messaging's right if you need that, or a virtual webmaster. And then we do social media management for schools and social ads. Plus we do SEO PPC management. And we can share this with the school depending on the school's ability. We can work both ways with this. But Travis, I think we got most of the questions answered at this point. I think there was a Power School answered. But I would say, why do I think this connection successful? Part of it is that Travis and I are committed to making this successful for our schools. We have very open communication. Our teams talk very well. They get along great. And to me, that's like half the battle right there, right? If there's a problem, we can work on it and fix it. But both of us are committed to having happy clients the best we can. Looks like we have some work to do on NXT, somehow getting that connected for international clients and connecting it up to our system better. Travis, I think there's a few things we got to dig into, but other than that, appreciate your time today.
Yeah, same. It's good. Good catching up. And, John and I both put our emails out there, communicate with it, whichever one of us you feel more comfortable. But, if there's part of what we're saying here that you don't think we're delivering on or living up to, or you want to see it do more, something we didn't talk about, email us both, email either one of us, because, we both think this is, for Blackbaud, this is, we've got 50 or 60 companies we partner with as well. And, this is in the top 5 easy in terms of most important and significant for us. And, I'd like to think it's the same for Finalsite. So, this is a priority. And if there's something that you need it to do that it's not doing, or something it's doing that needs to be better, we want to hear about it.
There you go. Good.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. And again, get in touch with us. Let us know how it's going. Let our teams know. And we'll continue adding to this. And it looked like there's some NXT stuff internationally, some stuff we need to peek at. We're happy to do that and see if we can get timeframes or stuff that's going on there that's inhibiting this from happening.
Yep.
Anyway,
Perfect.
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Yep. Take care. Yep. Bye-bye.